Welcome to Ask the Edmonds Cop. I'm Teresa Whipple with Sergeant Shane Hawley, and we're going to talk about drones today.
Okay, we've done this before.
We have, but there's new information, you tell me.
Yeah, there's always something new, it seems like, with drones.
Yeah.
They're kind of a hot topic. So, yeah, I've done some research again, talked to someone that knows a little more about drones than I do. So, I've got some interesting stuff.
And we do have a prop, by the way.
Yes, and this is not ours.
Yes.
This is not
As
the
not the
police
police
department's
department's.
drone. This
Right.
is a friend of mine's personal drone.
Not,
We do
not
not have a
taxpayer
drone.
money here, just so you're clear
Yes,
about
we
that.
are not flying a drone around town.
All right.
So, however, interesting, some police departments are.
Okay.
Renton just enacted some policy, and they're going to start using one basically for crime scene type stuff. You know, if you have a fatal car crash or outdoor homicide scene or something, because we take top-down photographs. If you see a big car crash or a significant incident that we're investigating, it's not uncommon for us to bring a fire department ladder truck out, and we'll actually harness a detective up, and they will climb all the way to the top of the ladder and take top-down photos.
Okay.
So something like that might make it easier
Okay.
as far as that goes. So you're starting to see that in fire departments are actually kind of putting infrared cameras on them so they can see hot spots and roofs and houses. So they do have some potential use as far as that goes.
Okay, but for the everyday citizen who might want to fly one, what should they know?
All right, so people always say, is it illegal to fly them in the city? What are the laws, and how's that look like? So we'll start in Edmonds. There's no Edmonds laws. Still nothing on the books as far as municipal codes go.
Okay.
State law, there were 3 potential House bills to enact legislation this year related to drone usage. None of them passed through the House. Okay. They are, number 1, ban them around orca whales. So you can't fly one around an orca whale.
Which might be a little difficult to do anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess
you could be in a boat, right?
Yep, you could launch them from a boat,
All right.
and they looked at that and said, that's already covered under state law, you can't mess with them.
All right.
So, number 2 was make it a civil infraction to fly over private property without consent of the property owner or specific FAA approval. That one didn't make it through either. And then the third one was illegal for governments to fly without specific legislative authority. Meaning, like, if we wanted to fly one, the city council would have to say it's fine for Edmonds to do it.
So they have to pass a law first before you guys can
Correct.
do it. Got
Correct.
it.
So that didn't make it through either. So
Okay.
there's really no applicable state laws specific to flying drones. Federally, there's still some legislation that's in existence, but one thing got struck down, and a lot of people have talked about this, and there was a Drone Registration Act, basically,
Yeah.
that made it so you had to register your drone, and that included recreational use. Well, that got struck down in court. So right now, as it stands, the only time you have to register it is if you're flying one for commercial purposes.
Okay, so if somebody hired you to go and do something, that would be considered commercial.
Correct, yeah. The FAA considers this guy right here to be an unmanned aircraft system. So if you go online and search FAA unmanned aircraft systems, it will take you to their page, and they've got fair amount of frequently asked questions on there. Kind of walks you through the basics and some more advanced stuff. And this really boils down to, are you flying it for fun or for work?
Okay,
Recreation versus commercial usage.
all right.
And there's some specific things for each. You don't need a certification to fly it for recreational purposes or for hobby.
Okay.
Okay.
And I believe we might have some graphics that we were going to talk about.
Excellent.
Yeah, so maybe we can show those.
Yeah. So these will come from the Before You Fly app.
Okay,
And this is an FAA app that they have, and it really is an overlay of airspace.
okay,
Because one of the things is you're not supposed to fly it within 5 miles of an airport.
all right.
And so it kind of pinpoints where you're at, and will show you circles around restricted airspace so you know if you can actually fly where you are or not. You can fly within those zones if you have airport approval. So that's one of the things.
Okay. So that's another step you have to take.
Another step you have to take.
All right.
Correct.
And that's for either commercial or recreational.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. less than 55 pounds. That is the kind of guideline they've set for recreational usage.
You know how much this one weighs? It
That-
doesn't seem very heavy.
No, most of them are like 3 to 4 pounds.
Okay.
So I can't imagine what a 55-pound drone looks
That would
like.
be big.
Yeah, and we talked about that the first time, how drones, they've all kind of been labeled as drones, but historically the term really replied to large unmanned aircraft,
Yeah.
similar to what the military uses, and
Yeah.
those things are big. I mean, we're talking the size of this table or small cars that fly up at 20, 40,000 feet to take photos.
Okay.
So these are really, it's a radio-controlled helicopter
Yeah.
at its core.
All right.
And you always have to yield to aircraft, manned aircraft, and keep it in sight. That's kind of the recreational use. For commercial use, and there are a lot of businesses that are using them. You can contract now. I know real estate agents take aerial photos and that sort of thing. For commercial purposes, they have to have a certificate. They call it a remote airman certificate. So
Alright.
there's some sort of certification process.
So you have to get trained in some way.
Yeah, there's some sort of hoops you have to jump through. Stay in line of sight, keep it under 400 feet, fly during daytime hours, don't fly over people, not from a moving vehicle. However, a lot of those can be waived by the FAA if you essentially ask for it.
Okay. And that information is, if you want to know more, is on the website.
Correct, that is also on their website.
All right.
Yeah, so a lot of stuff. But the Before You Fly app is pretty good, gives you a good starting point, lets you know if where you're at you can fly and so forth. You know, nationwide, a lot of the main concerns seem to boil up to privacy.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I think that's the concern people have had here when we've had comments from people.
Yeah.
They worry about, somebody being outside their window with a
correct.
drone.
And you know, there's been nationwide a lot of attempts at passing kind of drone privacy laws and so forth, and a lot of them just haven't made it through because we already kind of have a bunch of laws about privacy. I mean, we have voyeurism laws on the statute, and as far as trespassing goes, there's kind of a gray area as to, do you own the airspace around your house and what's considered trespassing and not. We would kind of look at it and say, well, if you set foot onto someone's property to launch your drone, that's kind of obviously trespassing.
Yeah.
You can't be there. And, if you land your drone on someone's property and go get, same sort of thing. So we kind of already have some laws related to those sorts of things.
Yeah, and I think one thing that people have always said, and I know it happens sometimes with drone operators, is they crash.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you don't mean to have it in somebody's yard, but it crashes, and then it's a problem.
This guy right here is about $1,000,
Mm-hmm.
and they have come up. The technology's come down in price, so it's expensive, but they're still reachable. Last holiday season, about 1.2 million of them were sold.
Wow.
And the FAA on their sites, they anticipate 4.3 million of them in operation by the year 2020. So they're obviously not going away.
No.
So we'll see where all the legislation goes and what happens with them moving forward. But they have some built-in things that kind of keep them, if you're flying around trees, some sensors to kind of keep it from flying into a tree and other objects and so forth.
Right. Well, and if Amazon follows up on its plan announced a while ago to start delivering packages that way, we could see many more.
Yep, we'll see what happens with them. So, but
Okay.
that's kind of the most recent update. So if you want to dig a lot deeper, hit that FAA website up. That really kind of is going to give you the best
Great. And
point.
we'll have a link to that as well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Always interesting to talk with you about these topics.
Oh, well, we'll see what you come up with next.
Okay. We'll be
All right.
back again soon with another episode of Ask the Edmonds Cop.